The massive doors of Helix Prime's docking bay slid open with a hiss. Commander Vraltesh watched from his security station as the human shuttle settled onto the landing pad. His forearms crossed over his armored chest as he studied the small craft on his monitors. This was only the third human vessel to visit the station since Earth had joined the galactic community 6 months ago. Vraltesh had served as head of security for 20 years. He had seen thousands of species pass through these scanners. The system was perfect. It could identify weapons, assess biological threats, and calculate danger levels in seconds. It had never failed, until today. The shuttle's door opened and 4 humans stepped out. They walked toward the security checkpoint with slow, careful movements. Vraltesh noticed how small they were compared to his own kind. The Korthan stood nearly 8 feet tall with thick armored skin. These humans barely reached 6 feet and looked fragile. The first human entered the scanner. The display lit up with information. Taman male diplomat age 32. The system showed his heart rate, body temperature, and bone density. No weapons detected. Threat level, minimal. Standard reading for a civilian. The second human stepped forward. Mignon male engineer age 28. Again, the scanner processed everything smoothly. No anomalies. Threat level, minimal. The third human walked into the scanner with confident steps. Jiwan male security escort age 35. The system detected a sidearm on his hip. Properly registered and licensed. Threat level, low. Everything normal. Then the fourth human stepped forward. Vraltesh leaned closer to his screen. The woman was small, even for a human. She wore simple gray clothes with no armor or equipment visible. Her black hair was tied back in a practical style. She smiled slightly as she waited in the scanner. The display began its analysis. Species human, sex female. Name Hyejin, age 30. Occupation cultural liaison. Weapons detected none. Then the screen flickered. Threat assessment. Calculating. Vraltesh's mandibles clicked together. The scanner never took this long. Calculating, the other security officers noticed. They gathered around the main display, watching the unusual delay. Calculating. Then the screen displayed something Vraltesh had never seen in 300 years of operation. Error. Threat level unknown. Run it again. Vraltesh ordered. His officer reset the system and initiated another scan. The same information appeared. Everything processed normally until it reached threat assessment. Then the same error message. Error. Threat level unknown. Hyejin stood patiently in the scanner. She seemed completely calm, still wearing that slight smile. Almost like she expected this. Manual inspection, Vraltesh commanded. 4 security officers approached with handheld scanners. They checked every inch of the human woman. No weapons. No hidden technology. No biological anomalies. Nothing that could explain the error. Commander, she's clean, one officer reported. There's nothing here. Vraltesh studied his monitors again. He pulled up the scanner's diagnostic logs. The system was working perfectly on every other level. It detected her bone structure, muscle density, nervous system, all normal for a human female. But when the threat assessment algorithm tried to process this information, it simply stopped. It was like the computer looked at her and couldn't decide what she was. Let me speak with her, Vraltesh said. He left his station and approached the security checkpoint. Up close, the human was even smaller than she appeared on screen. The top of her head barely reached his lower chest. Apologies for the delay, Vraltesh said in common tongue. Our scanner is experiencing technical difficulties. No problem, Commander, Hyejin replied. Her voice was calm and friendly. Then she continued in perfect Korthan dialect. I understand security protocols must be followed carefully. Vraltesh's mandibles spread in surprise. Very few non-Korthan could speak their language. She had perfect pronunciation and proper formal grammar. You speak Korthan, he observed. I studied several languages before this assignment, she explained. I thought it would be respectful to learn the language of our hosts. Vraltesh nodded slowly. He gestured to her companions. Your delegation may proceed, but I must assign additional security personnel to accompany you during your stay. Of course, Hyejin agreed. She joined the other humans and they walked toward the main corridor. As she passed, Vraltesh noticed something that made his warrior instincts alert. The way she moved. It was too precise, too balanced, every step placed with perfect efficiency. She walked like someone who had trained extensively in movement control. He had seen that kind of movement before, in soldiers, in warriors, but the scanner said she was unarmed. A civilian? A cultural liaison. Vraltesh returned to his station and pulled up the full scan data. He examined every detail. Her muscle structure showed development patterns. Her nervous system showed enhanced reflex pathways. Her bone density was high for her size, all natural, all human normal. But taken together, one of his officers approached. "Commander, should we detain her?" "On what grounds?" Vraltesh asked. "We found no weapons, no threatening technology. She violated no laws." "But the scanner found an error," Vraltesh interrupted. "Not a threat, an error. There's a difference." He watched the humans on the security cameras as they entered the station proper. Hijin walked slightly behind the diplomat Taman, her eyes constantly scanning their surroundings, taking in exits, noting other people, assessing spaces. Vraltesh had done the same thing for 20 years. It was how trained fighters observed their environment. He opened a new file and began writing a report to Galactic Security. His fingers moved across the holographic keyboard as he tried to put his concerns into words. Subject: Human Security Anomaly. The advanced scanning system at Helix Prime encountered an unprecedented error when processing a human female civilian. The system could not calculate threat level despite detecting no weapons or prohibited technology. Manual inspection confirmed no violations. However, I recommend further investigation into human physical capabilities. He paused, then added one more line. Personal observation. The scanner could not assess the female because it has no reference for what she is. I believe we have made an error in our assumptions about humans. We assumed they separate their warriors from their civilians like most species. I am no longer certain this is true. Vraltesh sent the report and sat back in his command chair. On the monitors, he watched Hyejin and her delegation enter a lift to the diplomatic levels. She said something that made the other humans laugh. She looked completely normal, completely harmless. But the scanner had seen something his eyes couldn't. Some quality in her that the computer couldn't classify, couldn't understand, couldn't measure. For the first time in his long career, Vraltesh felt uncertain. Not afraid exactly, but aware that he was dealing with something new. Something the galaxy hadn't encountered before. He made a note to watch the human delegation very carefully during their stay, and to learn everything he could about Earth and its people. Because if one unarmed female could make a perfect scanner fail, what else didn't the galaxy understand about humans? The question would be answered much sooner than he expected. The Galactic Security Council chamber was shaped like an amphitheater. Representatives from 12 major civilizations sat in curved rows, looking down at the central presentation area. The room could hold 500 beings, and today it was full. Vraltesh stood at the center, feeling small despite his considerable size. He had been summoned to present his findings about the human anomaly. The incident with Hyejin had caused enough concern that the council wanted answers. "Commander Vraltesh," the council leader said. "She was a Methrian, a species known for wisdom and long life. Please present your report." Vraltesh activated the holographic display. Footage appeared in the air above him. The security camera recording from Conference Room 7 played for everyone to see. The council watched in silence as the Scaleth guard approached Hyejin. They saw him reach for her. Then they saw what she did. The recording played 3 times. Each time Vraltesh slowed it down more. Even at quarter speed, Hyejin's movements were smooth and controlled. The guard never had a chance. "This is a human female," Vraltesh explained. "Age 30, weight approximately 55 kilograms. No weapons, no armor, no technological enhancement." He pulled up comparison data. "This is a Scaleth warrior. Age 24, weight 110 kilograms. Trained soldier, armed." The numbers floated in the air. The size difference was obvious. The Scaleth was twice her weight and significantly stronger. Yet she defeated him in 4 seconds, Vraltesh continued, using only her body and training. A Vexlor representative spoke up. The Vexlors were a cautious species from a low-gravity world. Surely this is an exceptional case. One highly trained individual? "That's what we thought," Vraltesh said. He brought up new data. But further investigation reveals this is normal for humans. Approximately 30% of their population has formal combat training. That's 2.4 billion individuals. The number hung in the air. the council murmured. And the other 70%? Someone asked. Most have basic training, Vreltesh replied. They teach self-defense in their schools. To children, why? The Methrian leader asked. They're not a warrior species by our definitions. They haven't fought major wars in decades. That's what we need to understand, Vreltesh said. I requested that Earth send experts to explain. The doors opened. 3 humans entered. Taemin the diplomat, Hyejin the cultural liaison, and a new human named Daehyun, introduced as a historian. They looked tiny in the massive chamber, but they walked with confidence. Thank you for coming, the Methrian leader said. We have questions about your species' combat capabilities. Taemin nodded. We're happy to answer, but I think there's a misunderstanding. We're not a warrior species. Then explain what we just saw, a Korthan military officer demanded. Your civilian defeated a trained soldier with ease. She defended herself, Taemin corrected. There's a difference, Daehyun stepped forward. May I explain the history? I think it will help. The council leader gestured permission. Earth is a difficult world, Daehyun began. Before we developed technology, we had no natural weapons. No claws, no armor, no venom. But we had predators, large animals that could kill us easily. He pulled up images of Earth animals. Lions, bears, wolves. We survived by using our minds. We made tools. We worked in groups. And we learned to fight with our bodies. Every human culture developed fighting systems. Not because we wanted to be warriors, because we needed to survive. More images appeared. Humans from different time periods and cultures, all practicing different fighting styles. These systems were refined over thousands of years, Daehyun continued. Each culture added techniques. Better ways to move, better ways to use leverage and balance. We shared this knowledge across our world. But you have weapons now, someone pointed out. Energy weapons, projectile weapons. Why continue hand-to-hand training? Because weapons can be lost, Hyejin said. Or broken. Or taken away. But your body is always with you. We believe every person should be able to defend themselves if necessary. It's cultural, Taemin added. Like teaching children to swim or to run. We see basic combat skills as life skills, not military skills. The Vex lore representative shook his head. This is unusual. Most species separate their warriors from their civilians. We have military forces who train for combat. Everyone else doesn't need those skills. That works when you're naturally tough, Daehyun said. Or when you have claws or armor. Humans don't, we're soft, fragile, so we had to become skilled instead. This female, the Korthan officer said, pointing at Hyejin. She is not military? No, sir, Hyejin confirmed. I study languages. I teach culture. I've never served in the military. But you could fight in a war? Hyejin hesitated. If I had to, yes. Most humans could. But we'd prefer not to. The Methrian leader leaned forward. What about your actual military? Your soldiers? They're much more dangerous than me, Hyejin said simply. The council went quiet at that statement. Perhaps a demonstration? The Korthan officer suggested. We have training facilities. I'd like to see these human capabilities firsthand. Hyejin looked at Taemin, who nodded reluctantly. 2 hours later, the council reconvened in Training Hall 3. A Korthan soldier named Vresh volunteered for the demonstration. He wore padded armor and moved with the confidence of a trained fighter. Hyejin wore simple exercise clothes. She bowed politely to Vresh before they began. This is a controlled demonstration, the Korthan officer announced. No serious injury intended. Combat ends when one participant yields or is immobilized. Vresh moved first. He was fast for his size, closing the distance with a powerful charge. Hyejin moved aside. Not running away, just stepping out of the direct path. Vresh adjusted, swinging a massive arm. Hyejin moved under it. Her hands touched his arm, redirecting it. Vresh stumbled slightly, his momentum disrupted. For the next 3 minutes, the council watched something unprecedented. Hyejin never tried to match Vresh's strength. She didn't block his attacks directly. Instead, she moved around them, used them against him. Every time Vresh tried to grab or strike, she turned his force aside and created openings. Finally, Vresh overcommitted to an attack. Hyejin stepped inside his reach, trapped his arm, and took him down. He landed hard but safely. She had control of his arm in a joint lock. Vresh tapped the mat twice. Yield. Hyejin released him immediately and helped him up. They bowed to each other again. The council sat in stunned silence. "He's twice her size," someone whispered. She made it look easy. The Korthan officer approached Hyejin. "You are certain you're not a soldier?" "I'm certain," Hyejin said. "Sir, I'm good at this. But I'm not the best. Earth has millions of people who are better than me." "Millions," he repeated. "Yes, sir. Professional fighters, military special forces, people who dedicate their whole lives to combat. I just do it for exercise and self-defense." The officer looked at Vresh, who was checking his pride more than his bruises. Then he looked back at the council. "I recommend we update our first contact protocols immediately," he said. "Humans are unlike any species we've encountered. They don't have a warrior class. They are a warrior class. All of them." "Not all," Daehyun corrected. "Many humans are pacifists. Many dislike violence. But yes, most of us can fight if we need to. It's just part of being human." The Methrian leader called for a vote. "All in favor of updating human classification protocols?" Every representative raised their hand or appendage. "Motion passes," she declared. "Humans will be classified as a species with universal combat capability. All security stations will be notified. Commander Vraltesh worked with the human delegation to establish new protocols." As the council dispersed, small groups of representatives gathered to talk. Many looked worried. Some looked interested. A few looked frightened. Vraltesh stood with the humans. "Your species is causing quite a reaction." "We're not trying to scare anyone," Taman said. "We just want to be honest about who we are." "I know," Vraltesh said. "But you need to understand something. Most species here today, their civilians are helpless. If you took away their technology, their weapons, they couldn't defend themselves. They depend on military forces for protection. And humans don't," Hyejin said, understanding. "Exactly. You're self-sufficient in a way that's alien to us. Every human is a potential threat. Not because you're aggressive, but because you're capable. Is that a problem?" Daehyun asked. Vraltesh's mandibles clicked thoughtfully. "I don't know yet. But the galaxy is going to have to adjust to this new reality." What he didn't say was that his own people, the Korthan, were adjusting fastest. The warrior culture of his species recognized something in humans. Not enemies, but equals. Other beings who understood that sometimes you had to be ready to fight, even if you preferred peace. That night, new protocols went into effect at stations across the galaxy. Security scanners were updated. Training manuals were revised. The message was clear. Humans require special consideration. Not because they're dangerous, but because they're all dangerous. "Not anymore," Sulgi said. "Word will spread. Human ships are off limits now." She was news of the New Hope incident spread across the galaxy faster than light. Within a week, every major civilization knew the story. A colony ship full of civilians had defeated one of the most feared pirate groups in known space. Without losing a single person, the reactions varied wildly depending on who was listening. In the Korthan War Council chambers, General Kresh reviewed the footage for the 5th time. He paused on a frame showing Sulgi taking down a raider twice her size. His mandibles clicked in what other species might call a smile. "Magnificent," he said to his officers. "Look at her technique. Perfect economy of motion. She uses his weight against him." "They fought like warriors," one officer observed. "But they claim to be farmers." "They're both," Kresh said. "That's what we failed to understand. We separate what we are from what we do. Humans don't. A farmer can be a warrior. A teacher can be a soldier. They don't see a contradiction." He stood and addressed his council. "I'm recommending a formal alliance with Earth. These humans understand something we thought we'd forgotten. That every citizen has a responsibility to be capable, to be ready." "What if they're a threat?" someone asked. "They already are a threat," Kresh replied. "The question is whether they're our threat or someone else's. I'd rather have them as friends." The council voted. The alliance proposal passed unanimously. Across the galaxy in a very different location, the mood was less philosophical. The Velcross pirate clans met in a hidden station. 50 clan leaders gathered, representing thousands of raiders. They watched the New Hope footage in silence. When it ended, nobody spoke for a long time. Finally, Thurg stood. His exoskeleton still bore cracks from his encounter with the humans. "I was there," he said. "I saw what they did. We need to issue a formal directive. Human ships are forbidden targets. We've raided colonies for generations," a clan leader protested. "We don't run from anyone." "Then you go raid a human ship," Thurg snapped. I'll attend your funeral. He pulled up more footage, not from New Hope, but from traffic cameras throughout the galaxy. Humans going about their daily lives. Walking through stations, working, shopping, living, watch how they move, Thurg said. Even when they're relaxed, they're balanced, aware, ready. He zoomed in on a human child, maybe 7 years old, practicing kicks in a station park while her parents watched. They start training their young early, he continued. By the time they're adults, fighting is as natural as breathing. He showed another clip of human teenagers sparring in a gym. This is recreation for them. Play. The clan leaders watched uneasily. The risk-to-reward ratio is unacceptable, Thurg concluded. There are easier targets. Let someone else test themselves against humans. The vote was close, but it passed. Human vessels were declared off-limits. Meanwhile, in the academic halls of the Galactic Institute, xenobiologists were having a crisis. Dr. Vrenna spread holographic displays across her lab. Brain scans, muscle composition analysis, bone density reports, all human. This doesn't make sense, she muttered to her assistant. Their bodies aren't specialized for combat. No natural weapons, no armor, average strength for their size. But they're extremely effective fighters, her assistant noted. Exactly. So where does the capability come from? Vrenna highlighted the human brain structure. Here, look at the motor cortex, the cerebellum. Humans dedicate enormous brain power to movement and spatial awareness. She pulled up comparison data from other species. Most species evolved in relatively stable environments. Humans evolved on a world with extreme diversity, different climates, different terrains, predators on land and water, even from the air. So they adapted to be versatile, the assistant said. More than that, they adapted to learn. A human can train their body to do almost anything. They're not born warriors. They're born with the capacity to become warriors, or swimmers, or climbers, or dancers. Their flexibility is their weapon. Vrenna published her findings. The paper caused intense debate in academic circles. But the conclusion was clear. Humans were unique in their ability to adapt their bodies through training. On Helix Prime, Vreltesh was dealing with more practical matters. The station's security systems were being completely overhauled. New protocols, new training, new equipment, all because of humans. Commander, the new scanners are online, an officer reported. Vreltesh examined the updated system. When a human passed through now, the display showed different information. Species, human weapon status, unarmed close combat capability, assume trained recommendation, maintain respectful distance. It wasn't elegant, but it was honest. Yejin walked through the scanner that afternoon. She was returning from another diplomatic mission. The system processed her and displayed the new warning. She saw it and smiled. Better? She asked Vreltesh. More accurate, he replied. Though I'm still not comfortable with how it reads. Why not? Because it makes every human sound dangerous. We are, Yejin said simply. We just choose not to be. There's a difference, Vreltesh thought about that. Choice, he said. That's the key, isn't it? You have the capability, but you don't use it unless necessary. Exactly. We call it self-control. It's actually more important than the combat training itself. A new group of humans arrived that week. These were official military liaisons. Sunjae from the Army, Haeon from the Marines, Borum from the Navy SEALs. They were here to establish protocols for identifying actual military personnel. Vreltesh met them at the docking bay. He noticed immediately that they moved differently than other humans he'd met. More precise, more controlled. Like Hyejin, but even more so. Welcome to Helix Prime, he said. Thank you, Commander, Sunjae replied. She was tall for a human, with short dark hair and eyes that seemed to catalog everything in sight. I've met many humans now, Vreltesh said. Diplomats, scientists, colonists, you're different. We're soldiers, Haeon said. It's what we do full-time. If Hyejin is dangerous, Vreltesh asked carefully. How dangerous are you? She could beat me in judo, Sunjae admitted. I could probably beat her in most other things. But that's not the real difference in what is. We've practiced violence in every possible situation, Borum explained. Day and night, zero gravity and high gravity, water, desert, Arctic, urban, with weapons and without, injured and healthy. We've spent years learning to fight in conditions most people can't imagine. So you're the warriors, Vreltesh said. The ones we should actually worry about. No, Sunjae corrected. We're just specialists. Any human can fight. We're just really, really good at it. That evening, the military liaisons met with the Galactic Security Council. The purpose was to establish clear identification protocols, ways to distinguish military from civilian humans. But the meeting revealed a problem. On most worlds, the Methrian leader explained, military personnel are obvious. They wear uniforms, carry weapons, live in bases. How do we identify your soldiers when they look like anyone else? Uniforms aren't always worn, Sanjay said, and our special operations forces often work in civilian clothes. Then how do we know? Someone asked. You don't, Heian said bluntly. Not reliably. A human in casual clothes could be a teacher, or a special forces operator, or both. We don't separate our lives the way you do. The council shifted uncomfortably. I think you're approaching this wrong, Boram said. You're trying to identify which humans are dangerous, but that's not possible because we're all potentially dangerous. Instead, focus on behavior. A human behaving peacefully should be treated peacefully. One behaving aggressively should be responded to appropriately. That's how we'd handle any species, Vraltesh noted. Exactly, Boram agreed. Don't make special rules for humans. Just recognize that our baseline capability is higher than you expected. The council debated for hours. Finally, they reached a compromise. Humans would be classified differently than other species, not as more dangerous, but as universally capable. The new official designation read, Species Human, Natural Combat Aptitude, Civilian Military Distinction Limited. Recommend standard diplomatic protocols with enhanced awareness. It was bureaucratic language for a simple truth. Treat humans with respect because they can fight back. Word spread through the galaxy. Governments updated their first contact procedures. Stations modified their security protocols. Criminal organizations adjusted their target lists. The change was subtle but profound. Humans went from being curiosities to being respected, not feared exactly, but acknowledged. On a quiet evening, Vraltesh found Hijin in one of the station's observation lounges. She was watching ships come and go through the massive windows. How do you think this will end? He asked. End? Hijin looked confused. This adjustment period. The galaxy learning what humans are. Oh. She thought for a moment. I think it'll be fine. People are adaptable. Once they understand we're not trying to threaten anyone, they'll relax. But you are threatening, Vraltesh said. Every one of you. Only if someone threatens us first, Hijin corrected. Commander, humans have a saying. Walk softly and carry a big stick. It means move through the world peacefully, but be ready if peace fails. And your stick is your combat training. Exactly. We don't want to use it. We'd rather trade, talk, and build relationships. But we're not helpless. We can't be pushed around or taken advantage. The colony ship New Hope drifted through space with dead engines. Inside, 300 humans waited in the dark. Emergency lights cast red shadows through the corridors. The life support still worked, but that was about all. Sulgi stood in the cargo bay checking supplies. She was 38 years old, a farmer by current profession, but she had served 8 years in the Korean Special Forces before retiring to raise crops instead of hell. When the call came for colonists, she signed up along with her wife and daughter. Now she wished she had stayed on Earth. 3 days ago, the Velcross raiders had attacked. Their first shot disabled the engines. The second destroyed the communications array. The distress beacon got out one message before it died. Under attack. Crew responding. Help was coming. But it would take at least 6 more days to arrive. The raiders knew that. They were waiting, circling the disabled ship like sharks. Taking their time. They would board soon and take everything worth taking. How many raiders? Dongyun asked. He was a colonist too, a teacher. But before that, he had been an Olympic wrestler. His huge frame filled the doorway as he entered the cargo bay. Their ship can hold maybe 40 to 50, Sulgi said. They won't send everyone. Probably 30 to board us. 30 armed raiders against 300 civilians, Donghyun said. Bad odds. Not that bad, Sulgi replied. She was checking the cargo manifest on her datapad. We have tools. We have the ship layout. And we're not exactly helpless. We're farmers and teachers, Donghyun pointed out. Right now, yes, Sulgi agreed. But Unji was a Krav Maga instructor. Hunyo did 6 years in the Marines. Minji has a black belt in Taekwondo. And you threw people for a living. She pulled up a list on the datapad. I've been checking the passenger manifest. 43 colonists have military backgrounds, 81 have martial arts training, and almost everyone has basic self-defense skills. You want to fight them, Donghyun said. I want to survive, Sulgi corrected. Fighting is just how we do that. She gathered the colonists with combat experience. They met in the mess hall, speaking quietly. Seulgi laid out the situation. They'll board within the next few hours, she explained. Probably at the main airlock. Standard pirate tactics. They expect us to hide or surrender. What do we do instead? Yunyo asked. He was young, only 25, but he moved with military precision. We fight, Sulgi said simply. We turn this ship into a nightmare for them. She pulled up the ship's layout on a wall display. We can control the environment, lights, gravity, pressure doors. We know every corridor, every storage room, every maintenance shaft. They have guns, someone pointed out. Guns are less useful in close quarters, Sulgi said, especially in narrow corridors. If we can force close combat, we have the advantage. How? Minji asked. She was a small woman, barely 5 feet tall, but Sulgi had seen her practice forms in the ship's gym. The girl moved like water. Because we've spent our whole lives learning to fight without weapons, Sulgi explained. They haven't. Most species in the galaxy don't do hand-to-hand combat. They use technology, guns, armor. Take those away and they're helpless. Dongyun smiled slowly. You want to use their tactics against them? Exactly, Sulgi confirmed. We ambush. We disable. We disappear. We make them afraid of every shadow. Over the next 2 hours, they prepared. Cargo containers were repositioned to create choke points. Tools were distributed as improvised weapons. Colonists were assigned to specific positions. Yunji gathered everyone who knew Krav Maga or military combatives. Remember the basics, she told them. Eyes, throat, knees. Hit fast, hit hard. Don't stop until they're down. The children were secured in the most protected section of the ship with 15 adults to guard them. Everyone else took positions, then they waited. The alert came at 0300 ship time. Docking clamps engaged on the main airlock. The raiders were boarding. Sulgi watched on security monitors from her hidden position. 30 raiders entered, just as she predicted. They were Velcross, a species that looked like a cross between crabs and beetles. 6 legs, heavy exoskeletons, 4 arms that could hold weapons. They moved in standard formation. Weapons ready, scanning for threats. The first squad moved into the main corridor. Seolgi triggered the lights. Total darkness, the Velcross activated night vision equipment. But Sulgi had expected that. She triggered the emergency strobe lights. Blinding flashes in the darkness. The raiders' advanced vision became a weakness, overloaded by the rapid light changes. While they were disoriented, colonists dropped from ceiling maintenance hatches. Yunho landed on one raider, locking his arms around the alien's visual sensors. Minji swept the legs of another, her small size letting her strike low and fast. The fight lasted seconds. 3 raiders down. The colonists disappeared back into the ceiling before the others could react. What was that? One raider shouted in their clicking language. Contact! Multiple hostiles. Where? I don't see. Another squad rounded a corner. Dongyun waited there. The corridor was narrow, forcing the raiders into single file. The first one through never knew what hit him. Dongyun's wrestling experience made him devastating in close quarters. Throw, control, immobilize. The raiders' weapons clattered on the floor, useless. The next raider tried to shoot. Yunji came from the side, redirecting the weapon with a Krav Maga disarm. Her knee struck nerve clusters. Her elbow found weak points in the exoskeleton. The raider went down. Throughout the ship, the pattern repeated. Raiders would advance. Colonists would strike from unexpected angles. Disable, disappear, strike again. The raiders had guns. The humans had knowledge. Of anatomy, of leverage, of angles and timing. Fall back, the raider commander ordered. Regroup at the airlock. But Sulgi had anticipated that too. While the raiders were scattered through the ship, she had sent a team to their boarding point. When the raiders tried to retreat, they found their path blocked. Cargo containers sealed the corridor, and humans waited in the shadows. The raiders panicked. Panic made them sloppy. They bunched up, making themselves easier targets. They fired wildly, hitting each other as often as the humans. In the cargo bay, the raider captain named Thurg finally understood his mistake. These weren't terrified civilians. They were organized, trained, dangerous, He tried to reach his ship, but Dongyun had disabled the docking clamps. They were trapped. Thurg grabbed his communicator. All ships. Abort mission. I repeat, abort. The humans are... Sulgi dropped from above, her hands finding pressure points on Thurg's nerve clusters. The communicator fell. Thurg collapsed. 2 hours after the boarding began, it was over. 30 raiders captured, 40 weapons secured, 0 human casualties, a few bruises, some cuts, but everyone alive. Sulgi stood in the cargo bay looking at the bound raiders. They looked terrified. Some were injured, but none seriously. The humans had used just enough force to disable, not kill. Why? One raider asked in broken common tongue. Why you no kill us? Because we're not murderers, Sulgi said. You attacked us. We defended ourselves. That's all. The raider shook his head. You are civilians. You have no weapons. How you fight like soldiers? Yunji answered from nearby. We're humans. We're always armed. She held up her hands. These are weapons. Our bodies are weapons. We just usually choose not to use them. When Galactic Security arrived 3 days later, they found a strange scene. The colony ship was damaged but secure. 300 colonists were conducting repairs and tending crops in the hydroponics bay. 30 raiders were detained in the cargo hold looking traumatized. The security commander was a Methrian named Kelvor. He boarded cautiously, expecting carnage. Instead, he found Sulgi drinking coffee in the mess hall. Commander Kelvor, she greeted him. Thanks for coming. Sorry you made the trip for nothing. For nothing? Kelvor looked around. We received a distress call. An attack by Velcross raiders. Oh, that, Sulgi said. We handled it. You handled it. Yes, sir. The raiders tried to board. We stopped them. Kelvor pulled up the security footage. His 3 eyes widened as he watched. Humans moving through darkness, striking from impossible angles, taking down armed raiders with bare hands. How many casualties did you suffer? He asked. None, Sulgi reported. A few injuries. Nothing serious. And the raiders? All captured. Also some injuries, but we provided medical care. They're secured in the cargo hold. Kelvor went to check. The raiders looked at him with desperate eyes. Please, one begged. Take us away from here. These humans, they are not natural. They smile while they fight. They break bones and say sorry. They are devils. They're colonists, Kelvor said. Farmers, teachers, no. The raider insisted. They are warriors. All of them. Every human is a warrior. Kelvor returned to the mess hall. He found more colonists had gathered. They were laughing, sharing stories of the fight. Donghyun was demonstrating a throw technique. Minji was showing Junho a better way to strike nerve clusters. You seem cheerful, Kelvor observed. Most civilians would be traumatized after such an attack. We were scared, Sulgi admitted. But we knew what to do. We trained for situations like this. You trained to fight off pirate attacks? We trained to defend ourselves, Sulgi corrected. The specific threat doesn't matter. The principles are the same. Kelvor shook his head. The Velcross raiders are feared across 3 sectors. They've been attacking ships for 20 years. 3 days after the scanner incident, the human delegation sat in Conference Room 7 of Helix Prime. The room was designed for multi-species gatherings, with adjustable seating and atmospheric controls. 5 different alien species had representatives present for the trade negotiations. Taman led the discussion for Earth. He spoke carefully, choosing his words with diplomatic precision. Beside him, Minho reviewed technical specifications on a datapad. Jiwon stood near the door, alert but relaxed. Hyejin sat quietly, taking notes and observing. The negotiations had been difficult from the start. Earth was the newest member of the galactic community. Many of the established powers wanted to test the humans, to see how far they could be pushed. The Drexel Consortium was the worst. They controlled major trade routes and knew it. Their representative, Kroll the Vast, lived up to his name. He was over 9 feet tall with thick blue scales and 4 eyes that never blinked. He had been openly hostile since the talks began. Your technology is primitive, Kroll rumbled. His voice was deep and threatening. Earth has nothing we need. You should be grateful we even consider trading with you. Taman remained calm. Our technology may be younger, but it's innovative. We offer unique solutions. Solutions? Kroll laughed, a harsh barking sound. You can barely leave your own star system. You have no resources we want. No knowledge we lack. You're wasting our time. The other delegates shifted uncomfortably. This was aggressive even for Kroll. He was clearly trying to provoke a reaction. "We came here in good faith," Taman said. His voice stayed level but gained an edge. "If the consortium isn't interested in fair negotiations, we can discuss terms with other partners." Kroll's scales rippled with anger. He gestured to his bodyguards. 6 heavily armed mercenaries moved forward. They were Scaleth warriors, reptilian soldiers known throughout the galaxy as efficient and brutal. G1's hand moved to his sidearm. The tension in the room spiked instantly. "Is there a problem?" Taman asked. His tone was still diplomatic, but his body language had changed. He sat straighter, more alert. "No problem," Kroll said with a nasty smile. "My guards are just stretching their legs. These rooms are so small for proper warriors." One of the Scaleth guards moved around the table. He walked directly toward Hyejin. It was clearly deliberate. Clearly a test. The guard stopped right behind Hyejin's chair. He was huge, over 7 feet of scaled muscle. His clawed hand rested on the back of her seat. He leaned down and hissed something in Scaleth language. The words were crude, insulting. He assumed she wouldn't understand. Hyejin set down her stylus. She turned in her chair and looked up at the guard. When she spoke, it was in perfect Scaleth. "Your grammar is incorrect," she said calmly, "and that phrase is considered very offensive. I suggest you apologize and return to your position." The room went silent. The guard's eyes widened in shock. Then rage. No one corrected a Scaleth warrior, especially not a small human female. "You dare," he started. His clawed hand shot out to grab her shoulder. What happened next took exactly 4 seconds. Hyejin moved. She wasn't there anymore. The guard's hand closed on empty air. She had shifted her position with minimal movement, redirecting his reaching arm. Her own hands moved in precise motions. The guard found his arm twisted, his balance broken. His body moved forward involuntarily. He tried to resist, but his own momentum betrayed him. Suddenly he was face down on the diplomatic table. Papers scattered. Datapad slid aside. Hyejin's knee pressed against his spine, right between his shoulder blades. One hand controlled his head, keeping his face pressed to the table. The other maintained a lock on his arm that made any struggle painful. The entire movement had been smooth, efficient, almost gentle in its precision. The guard tried to push up. Hyejin applied slightly more pressure. He stopped moving. She looked around the room. Her expression was calm. That slight smile was back on her face. "Shall we continue the negotiations?" she asked in common tongue. "Or would anyone else like to test human diplomatic protocols?" Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. The other 5 Scaleth guards had weapons half drawn, but they hesitated. Their companion, a trained warrior, had been put down in seconds by an unarmed human female. They didn't understand what they had just seen. Kroll stared with all 4 eyes. His mouth hung open in shock. The door opened. Station security rushed in, responding to alerts. Vraltesh led them, his 4 arms ready for action. He stopped when he saw the scene. Hyejin still held the guard down. The human delegation sat calmly. The other alien representatives looked stunned. "Commander," Hyejin said politely, "this guard attempted to assault me. I defended myself. I'll release him now if you'd like to take custody." Vraltesh nodded slowly. "Please do." Hyejin removed her knee and stepped back. The Scaleth guard scrambled up, backing away quickly. He looked terrified. His fellow guards caught him, and they all retreated to the far corner. "I have security footage," Vraltesh said. He had already been reviewing it on his wrist display. The guard initiated contact. The human responded with defensive measures only. No laws were broken. Kroll found his voice. I apologize for my guard's behavior. It was inappropriate." Taman stood. Apology accepted. "Now shall we discuss trade terms? I believe we've established that Earth deserves respect as an equal partner." The negotiations resumed, but everything had changed. Kroll was polite now, even deferential. The other delegates treated the humans with new consideration. When the session ended 2 hours later, Vraltesh waited outside. As the humans left, he approached them. "May I speak with you?" he asked. They moved to a quieter corridor. Vraltesh looked at Hyejin directly. "What are you?" he asked. "Really?" Hyejin smiled. "I'm a cultural liaison, just like my credentials say." "The scanner couldn't assess you," Vraltesh said, "and I just watched you defeat a Scaleth warrior with your bare hands. That guard has killed opponents twice his size. You dropped him in 4 seconds. He was angry, Hyejin explained. Anger makes you sloppy. I just used his momentum against him. Where did you learn to do that? At home on Earth, she shrugged. I have a black belt in judo and taekwondo. Many people do. Black belt. Vraltesh was unfamiliar with the term. Minho spoke up. It means expert level. She's been training since she was a child. About 20 years of practice. But you're not a soldier, Vraltesh said to Hyejin. No, she agreed. I'm a linguist. I study cultures and languages. Then why do you know combat? Hyejin looked confused by the question. Why wouldn't I? It's normal. Most humans learn some form of self-defense. We think it's important to be able to protect ourselves. Most humans? Vraltesh repeated. Sure, Minho said. Maybe 30 or 40% have formal training. And almost everyone learns basic stuff in school. Vraltesh felt something cold in his chest. 30 or 40% of 8 billion humans. That was billions of people with combat training. And Hyejin wasn't even a soldier. Thank you for your time, Vraltesh said slowly. Enjoy your stay at Helix Prime. The humans left. Vraltesh stood in the corridor thinking. That night he accessed Earth's information networks. He spent hours reading about martial arts, judo, taekwondo, karate, boxing, wrestling, kung fu, muay thai, krav maga, Brazilian jiu-jitsu. The list went on, thousands of fighting systems, developed over thousands of years, refined by millions of practitioners, all designed to make human bodies into weapons, and it wasn't military training. It was culture, recreation, sport, children's activities. Vraltesh updated his report to Galactic Security. He added new observations, new concerns. Humans do not separate combat training from civilian life the way other species do. Their entire population appears to have some level of hand-to-hand fighting capability. The female who caused the scanner error demonstrated expert-level skills, yet she is classified as a non-combatant. Recommend immediate review of all human contact protocols. He sent the report and sat back. The scanner had been right to halt, right to show an error. Because how do you assess the threat level of a species that turns every citizen into a warrior? The answer was you can't, and that terrified him.